Hello. I just wanted to make an update. What's going on with the computer that I've been working on from my friend for a long time now? Might wait 1 second to see if anyone comes in. Otherwise, I'll just archive it if anyone cares. So, this is a computer. This is one of the aluminum panels that I had cut out. This will be going in front like that, and the front holes, I'll have to cut out some holes similar to how the back's completely cut out, but I'll make at least some holes where it makes sense to have some airflow, and then the front radiator will be mounted to this. So I just made 6 holes. I didn't make all 8, but should be plenty. And then these little tiny holes around the outside, I'm just gonna rivet. So I'll put some holes similar to how I did in the corners here. I'll do the same thing on the other side so that I can rivet this to the front, and that's where the front radiator will be mounted. And then what else we got here? And then basically on the back will be a panel. That's actually this panel. They look pretty damn similar, but this is the one that I cut out of aluminum that I will be using. I just need to actually bend the tabs first so that it has the same shape as this one, and this will be going on the back like that, and then that'll also get riveted into place, and this is the motherboard that'll be used, just a little ITX. The case normally fits a micro ATX, but I'll be changing quite a few things up, so it'll no longer fit micro ATX. So this will be the back panel, and the I/O, there's more or less cutouts for everything to line up. The only things that won't line up, there's this cross beam in here to keep matching the like hexagon shape. The only thing that won't be accessible is the hi ITX Geek. The only thing that won't be accessible is the video, the HDMI and the DisplayPort. So the video I/O, but that won't matter because it'll have a video card in there, and that's what he'll be plugging into anyway. And then let's see. This will be the water block. Right now it has an RGB 4-pin LED strip, but I'm gonna change that out for an addressable so that it'll be pretty much addressable throughout the entire build. And let's see what else. So this piece cut out of just acrylic. So this is going to be a basement piece. So we'll flip this back over. More or less, it'll look like that. So it's going to sit a little bit lower than that, and I'm going to have to trim it up a little bit to fit perfectly. But that is the basement piece that will cover up. There's going to be wires under there. Some of the power cables, the I/O cables will be run underneath, so it'll act as a very, very small mini basement, basically just tall enough to fit like the RGB controller. So like this RGB controller from Barrow or Borrow, whatever. It'll have some addressable RGB strips. So this will sit underneath of the basement. So that'll be hidden out of sight. I plan to put in a remote start so he can turn his computer on with a power button, and that can hook onto his keychain or whatever. As soon as he walks through the door, click that button, the computer will turn on, it'll be ready by the time he sits down. Not that it's going to be slow or anything, and he won't need to do that, but I can do it, so why not? Let's see what else. So, got a couple other aluminum pieces that will make up the custom power supply shroud. So this guy, I'm actually pretty proud of and excited about this. So what this will be is something that sits inside the case like that. And the power supply is an SF600, so an SFX by Corsair. And I've cut this apart and cut off this top panel. So what that's gonna look like, that'll actually slide into place there. And it's hard to see without shining some light on it, but the power supply components will be visible through the power supply shroud. So the only thing that I've seen somewhat similar to what I'm doing is maybe the in-wing power supply. You can kind of see into the side or whatever, but normally you would have the 92 millimeter fan on top of the power supply. That's how they would normally come. But I actually, one, I bought a new fan because it's black and I'm that picky. I want it to actually be matchy instead of the gray fan that the Corsair power supply comes with. But this black fan will be installed up front here. It'll go on the inside, so it'll be more flush. But yeah, that tab on each side that has two holes will support one side each. You get it. That'll go on the inside. So the airflow will be a little bit different. Instead of being a fan directly on top of the power supply blowing air in, it'll be relocated so that the air is actually pulled in through the front of the power supply and pushed through. And then there's the holes that the air will be able to go out of. So a couple things. I'm going to add a plexiglass front so that the air kind of stays inside and actually hits the components and then blown out the back instead of just escaping throughout all the holes. So I'll make some sort of cool plexiglass cover so that you can still see in it, but hopefully it would help better with airflow. And then I'm gonna have to either just completely hack off this front part or put a bunch of holes in it so that air can actually get into there and past the components. So might be a few more modifications on the power supply before that's perfect. But that's kind of the idea. And then all these little tiny holes is where all the power supply cables will come out of. So the power supply obviously being installed in here, the cables pointing that way, they'll come out, and I'm going to be making custom perfect length sleeved cables that will come out of these holes and be routed to 24-pin, 8-pin EPS, dual 8-pin PCI, and yeah, that'll be all the holes for that. And then the other power cables that will be routed to the LEDs, for example, or the front I/O. Those sort of things will actually be routed through this hole, through the bottom. And that's where this basement comes back into play. The basement has a matching hole. So the I/O and, like I said, LED, whatever sort of cables that I need to route can be hidden under the power supply, or the basement basically, come up through and hit the power supply. The SF750, I wish I had that version, but a 650 or a 600 SF600 should be plenty for his 6700K quad core and 1080 for the win. 600 watts should be plenty for that. He'll have a single SSD and a 3 terabyte hard drive. He's not gonna be powering much. Couple LEDs, that doesn't add much. Only 2 sticks of RAM. Like 600 should be plenty, but the 750 would be nice. But I'm sure that's more expensive, and I've already put plenty of my money into this since I quoted him way under what this was supposed to. I kept adding ideas, essentially, was the problem. I thought of something that would be cool and added 100 more ideas to it, and that's why it's been taking so long. This is the front piece. Oh, that's upside down. Front piece that will cover. So once the fan's installed, that's a front piece. I'll make that look super clean. And then, as well as the power supply itself, what will also be installed in here, these holes, the hard drive and SSD will actually be installed alongside the power supply. So the power supply will take up the majority of the room, but there will be enough room to screw in directly the hard drive, and SSD will fit in there. So there'll be a lot of cables, a lot of stuff. This will be jam-packed, but it'll keep things super clean, keep things out of sight. And I think that's it for now. I still have a few things that I need to cut. I didn't mention, but there'll be a fan in that hole. That's what that hole's for. This is actually going to come apart, and it's actually going to sit inside that hole like that. So it'll sit almost flush. It'll be a little bit higher than that. It'll be a little raised, but yeah, conveniently these come apart, and I cut out a hole so that that'll fit. So there'll be a a bottom fan that's intaking. There'll be two 140 fans at the top intaking bringing air, so it'll be in through the bottom, in through the top. There'll be a radiator, a 280, that guy there, Hardware Labs 280 in the front, that's pulling air out. They'll be on the back side here, where this sits, a 120, which is, it's underneath the 280. There'll be a 120 sitting in the rear, and that'll be out exhaust as well. So it'll have a 120 and two 140s intake, bottom and top, two 140s and one 120 through radiators as exhaust in the back and front. And it'll be a dual loop. So one loop for the GPU will be hooked up to the 280, one loop for the CPU hooked up to the 120, the rad. The Hardware Labs 280 is not anything super thick, but lots of surface area. 280 should be way plenty. Should be able to actually get a pretty dang good overclock on the For the Win 1080. And then in the back will be this little guy. So this is the 120. That'll be just for the 6700K, and that should be plenty even for a little overclock, because that's a pretty damn thick 120. This is actually a 45, I think, millimeter thick. .40, I guess, just under 40. But not too bad. Should be plenty. 40 millimeter for just the CPU, and not having to cool anything else should be plenty. So that should be it. That's, I believe, all I have for updates. All I have. I've been doing a lot. All of this has taken a long time, a lot of learning. Before I started this project, I essentially knew nothing. 6700K. That's what he has. Is that right? It's called 6700K, right? It's the quad core, the highest end i7 for the quad core Z270. I think it's called the 6700K. It's what he has. It's a CPU that I sold him quite a while ago, and he doesn't have the budget to jump up to anything like 9900K or anything, but it's still a very capable 4-core 8-thread. I mean, the thing will overclock plenty. I'm sure we can get a 4.7 stable or whatever, and play any game that he wants with a 1080, and he only has a 1080p monitor with, I believe, G-Sync 144 hertz. I should know, I sold him the monitor too, but yeah, I believe that's what he has. Hey Derek, how's it going? Just doing a little update. You kind of missed all of it, but I will archive this if you have any interest of seeing kind of what I've been doing for Zach's PC. It's been a process, lots of learning. That's what I was saying. It's been a lot of learning. So, for example, before I started doing this, one, I knew nothing about CNC, knew nothing about CAD, CAM, Fusion 360, just kind of learning as I go. Knew nothing about sheet metal, nothing about bending. These bends are not perfect, but it's working out okay. Battery is 2%. It's, 7 p.m. there? Battery shouldn't be dead by 7 p.m. You've been using it all day, maybe. I'm guessing you probably use it for work too, huh? Well, I think that's it. I'll probably wrap up. I've still got lots of stuff to cut, lots of stuff to do, but I'm trying to get myself motivated to keep going, because it's overwhelming with how much stuff I've bitten off. A lot more than I was able to chew. Slowly I've been learning, but I mean, even like the simplest things, like this borrow block didn't come with instructions of where each screw, and there's tons of little washers and just little things that add up that take time and are slightly frustrating because I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm getting there. I just need to keep pushing forward, and I'm making it a goal for sure to have it done by the end of the month, if not sooner. I'm going to see if I can convince him to maybe let me take the PC to LTX to show it off there. Maybe that could be its debut. It'd be really cool to, I don't know, maybe get people to follow my Instagram. Obviously, it's a goal eventually to have a portfolio and maybe work with sponsors. I'm not trying to do the influencer social media thing, but at the same time, it's quite tempting to try to go down that route because this is a very expensive hobby and I really, really do enjoy it. It's just expensive. I don't have the money myself, but anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the little update, and hopefully there'll be a lot more soon. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.